Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Starting a new series. This will be one of many new series. These, as opposed to the presentations and podcasts that you've experienced so far, will be brief. We'll try to keep them to under 20 minutes. And the purpose of this series and others that we're going to be starting, which are to cover regular ground in classic works, is to do a healthy, uh, concise installment of regular works like Mishnah, Rambam, Aruch HaShulchan, to and at a pace that's easy to maintain and absorb. Go through entire works. The goal of this series is to finish all the six orders of the Mishnah. You could take it, as you want, because we'll be doing more than just one tractate, more than one masechta at a time. So you could try to catch all of them at the same time, on the same day, and accelerate how you finish all the entirety of Mishnah, or just take it, one presentation a day, even though we'll be hopefully, as titled, I'm posting even more than just one presentation a day. Let me just give, by way of introduction, that the Mishnah is the basis for the Talmud. It's where the central ideas of the oral law were set down in writing. Of course, from Mishnah alone, one does not know how to properly perform any of the mitzvahs, because there are a lot of details that are hidden within the Mishnah that are in the Tosefta, and more importantly, in the Talmud, which the Talmud clarifies, or the Talmud also had access to other materials like Brachos, but mainly the Talmud, cross references the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the Mishnah and the Tosefta and the Brachos. It brings all that material, and it also, looks for hints within the Mishnah for all the other laws alluded to, and it also raises questions, and through the use of comparing and contrasting, arrives at conclusions. So you cannot rely on Mishnah to know how to perform any mitzvah correctly. But if you have the Mishnah, you have as it were, the text of the oral law that everything is based on. Because Talmud is based on Mishnah, but you need the Talmud to actually, know the entirety of halacha, and have the technology also, the ability to also figure out the halacha on questions that arose in later generations, in our times. But the Mishnah, nonetheless, is like the basis. It's the hardware, and everything is encoded there. Everything is hidden there. So you got to get the Mishnah straight, and then when you have the Mishnah solid, the Talmud, just flows, because it's all built around the Mishnah. And the final proof for a case is whether it is, fits watertight with the Mishnayos or not. Right? So that's why the Mishnah is so central. It is the foundation, and it is the bottom line, and it is also the measuring stick, the yardstick, as to whether an idea can be true or cannot be true. Now, a quick word. We're going to go through with the commentary of the Rambam, because the Rambam actually gives you the commentary of the Mishnah, even though it doesn't give you, the Rambam in its commentary doesn't give you all the details of the Talmud. It doesn't give you all the details that the Talmud said in regard to Mishnah, but it does give you the way the Talmud understood the literal words of the Mishnah. Because if the Mishnah could be read many different ways, you want to go with the way the Talmud says to read it. This is all asides from what the Talmud builds on top of it. Right? So we're not getting into what the Talmud builds on top. We're not getting into all the details that the Talmud pulls out of the Mishnah, but we are at least sticking with the way the Talmud says to read the Mishnah on its simplest, in its simplest form and its simplest meaning. So that's the product that the Rambam gives you. The Rambam also gives you a ruling if there are different opinions in the Mishnah, which opinion in the Mishnah we rule like. So even though it's like we said, it's not the final ruling on the entirety of that particular mitzvah that the Mishnah is discussing, because you need all the details of the Talmud. But as far as the issues raised by the Mishnah, if there's multiple opinions, the Rambam will tell you which opinion we rule like. Okay. Now, there's another thing that's special about the Rambam and the Mishnah. His first book, his first Hebrew book that he wrote, was a commentary to the Mishnah. As an organized book, he may have written letters before that. He began his literary career prior to that. He wrote a book on logic and logical sentence structures, Milot Bayon. But the Rambam, his first major work, was Torah work, was his commentary on the Mishnah, and it set the tone for the rest of his life. The Rambam had a special affinity for the Mishnah. He liked the order, because the Talmud is not an orderly work, it's a commentary. The Mishnah set the order. The Talmud, analyzes. It's a commentary built around the Mishnah. The Mishnah was the first to, succinctly put down the main principles of the oral law in a brilliant way that you could derive the details. It really facilitated the Talmud and was just waiting for the Talmud to come around. And of course, much of what the Talmud decodes was known in the days of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, who wrote the Mishnah, codified it. It was known orally, and they used to do the Talmud type stuff themselves until some few hundred years later, Ravina Ravashi put the Talmud in writing. So the Talmud was left oral. There was a certain oral information passed on. It was also the rabbis living. They used to go through the dialectic with each other until that was all etched in stone with the writing of the Talmud Bavli, 200-300 years later. So now, but the Rambam, very much, saw what the Mishnah did. It took the oral law and it codified it, pulled it together in a orderly pattern. So the Rambam imitated the style of the Mishnah in his Mishnah Torah. So it's like affinity for the order and also the language of the Mishnah, and the concise language of Mishnah also means two things. The style of Hebrew of the Mishnah is what the Rambam adopted for his own Mishnah Torah. He took that type of Hebrew, and he also took that sense of orderly pattern, and saying things short and concise, except that the Rambam's Mishnah Torah includes the details that were also derived and set forth and codified in the Talmud. That's why Rambam's Mishnah Torah is more comprehensive, but it's written in the Mishnah style. Amazing order and conciseness and beauty of language. But still, let it be said that if you learn the entire Mishnah Torah of the Rambam, you did not fulfill your entirety of obligation to learn the oral law, because the oral law subdivides into Mishnah and Talmud. Talmud is to go through the dialectics and the Pilpulim to derive new law based on old law, and to resolve difficulties, and also to research the origins of halacha using the midos shatar to dreshbam, the tools that the Torah is extrapolated with. So you don't have that in the Mishnah. The Rambam, but Mishnah really is a type of learning that includes all codified law. So it could be said that after the writing of the Mishnah, the body of codified law increased because there were the laws that the Talmud ruled on. So it's the Talmudic process. The Talmudic process remains uniquely the type of learning called Talmud, right? But then there's the codified law, published law. The published law should be added on to the Mishnah, the straight facts, the straight precedents that later issues should be compared against. So it should be called that, the what should be included in the Mishnah expanded by what the Talmud clearly ruled on. Those final rulings belong in the Mishnah also, right? But there was no one to add it to the Mishnah anymore. So the Rambam did that. The Rambam wrote, as it were, the new Mishnah. But it's just Mishnah. It's just published law, published precedents, right? But the Talmudic process of researching the origins of where those precedents came from, or comparing and contrasting and resolving difficulties, for that you still need the Talmud, right? And I could prove this to you, and I will prove this to you when we learn together. We're also going to have a Talmud, a Rambam, a Maimonides Mishnah Torah Shir here in this forum on this channel, and I will prove it to you. From what the Rambam wrote in his introduction, he meant that you could be fulfill your chiyuv of Torah Sheba'al Peh, of knowing the text of Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is Mishnah, the published law. He never dreamed that with this book you could fulfill your obligation to know the town, be to fulfill your obligation to go through the Talmudic process. But it's very clear from his letters that he felt that you could fulfill that obligation with learning Rif. And we will also have a Rif shear daily, a few times a week, a Rif shear here on this YouTube channel. And but I'll tell you something else. One might argue, well, look, all these, we don't always rule like the Rambam. We don't always rule like the Rif. So maybe those two books are not adequate for us, particularly us Ashkenazim, that many of our rulings are not based on Rambam and Rif. We go to Rosh and the Mordechai and ultimately the Rambam. So there was the perfect book written just 100 years ago or so. The Aruch HaShulchan that my Rosh Yeshiva, Yaakov Weinberg, of blessed memory, has said that one could fulfill his obligation knowing Mishnah and Talmud, knowing both the published law and also going through the person's obligation to engage in the Talmudic process of researching the origins of halacha and comparing new questions to old precedents and to resolve difficulties and contradictions that may arise. One could fulfill his entire obligation of Mishnah and the Talmudic process type learning with this wonderful book called the Aruch HaShulchan, written by Rabbi Chil Michal Epstein just a little bit over 100 years ago. And one could fulfill his entire obligation with that. And we will have also regular installments in that wonderful work also. So in short, with this YouTube channel, we will help endeavor every Jew, any God-fearing person, to fulfill his entirety of his obligation of Torah study. All right, so stick with us, stick with us. Anyways, this was all by way of introduction. Let us get to the matter at hand. We're going to endeavor to do a chapter a day, but we won't always be able to do so. So now, if you listen intently and you absorb everything we say, it's called that you've learned this tractate. And, I'll tell you where we are so you can follow in text. But this is, after all, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law. Listen carefully to the text of the Mishnah, and you can make a siyum, as we finish every order of the Mishnah, if you've really listened intently and concentrated and understood what we said. I said, I'll read the text of the Mishnah inside. The commentary of the Rambam, I'm going to say outside in my own words for brevity's sake, because otherwise we'll hardly make progress. Another thing is, you have the commentary of the Mishnah that anyone would use of the Rambam is all translations, not the Rambam's actual words. The Rambam wrote his commentary to the Mishnah in Arabic. And man, I don't speak Arabic. I haven't yet met the guy who does, who reads Arabic. I'm using one of the most updated translations from Machona Ma'or. So we're not reading the actual words of the Rambam anyway. So you could, so there's no problem if you hear my rendition, my translation, understanding the Rambam according to me, because if we read this inside, we'll be reading it in translation according to understandings of someone else. Like what we said before about the Mishnah Torah is the only book the Rambam wrote in Hebrew. Like I said, he copied the style of the Mishnah. All of the Rambam's other works, his letters, his commentary on Mishnah, Sefer HaMitzvos, his Moreh Nevuchim, all these things were written in the Judeo-Arabic that he spoke and wrote in, which was what the people in the Jews in his side of the world spoke, and that's how he spoke, and that's how he wrote. And and B'li Neder, I will also want to start a Moreh Nevuchim series also in this on this YouTube channel. All right, so without further ado, please try to concentrate. I'll first read the text of the Mishnah in the Mishnah's own words, in the Mishnaic Hebrew, and I'll translate it first cursorily, and then I will speak out what the Rambam had to say on the Mishnah. So we begin Maseches Brachos, right? This tractate deals with the laws of the prayers and the blessings. All the different blessings that we have to make on the mitzvahs, blessings that we have to make on food, blessings that we make when we see certain events. So it's all on the prayers, which includes Kriya Shema, the mitzvah say Shema twice a day, which is actually what it opens up with. The blessings, and the blessing of on food and after the food and on different events that arise. All the different blessings one has to make. When do we say the Shema prayer at night? From the time that the Kohanim go to eat their truma, truma is a special tithe that only that must be given to Kohanim, and only Kohanim may eat. A non-Kohen may not eat it, right? And even Kohanim can only eat it in purity. Now, in this day and age, Kohanim, it's very hard for them to prove that they're really Kohanim. There's also an issue of whether they're in purity or not, but mainly because it's very difficult for a Kohen to prove that he's a Kohen. So we, in the land of Israel, where one must take off Truma, we take off Truma and we discard it. But back in the days, the Kohen's only supposed to eat Truma if he is pure. So so it's at the time that the Kohanim go to eat their truma because they have then become pure, right? And that's at nightfall, as we will learn. And that is when the obligation begins. But it's over at the end of the first third of the night, right? They used to like to call it into, watchings, guard watchings, because there's a philosophical concept that there's a change of the guards. The way we rule that there are three guardings. There are three, so there's like three different guardings at night, and so at the change of the guard at the end of the first third of the night, that one should have finished saying Shema by that time, says Rabbi Eliezer. That's his opinion. Chacham say, the sages say you have until midnight, halfway through the night. Gamliel says you have until dawn, not sunrise. Dawn is 72 minutes before sunrise. We first see a little bit of light coming over the eastern horizon. So the Rambam says that he had already references what he explained in his introduction to the commentary of the Mishnah. That first of all, Brachos, this tractate is part of this tractate is part of the order of Zroim, the order of seeds, meaning all the mitzvahs that pertain to what grows from the earth. Most of those mitzvahs applying only in the land of Israel. Some of them apply in even in outside the land of Israel, but most of them only apply in the land of Israel, such as Truma that we just mentioned here, Maser, and there's Shemitah. Now, as the Rambam says, the reason why the order of Zroim, the order of the laws of the land are first, because agrarian society, even a non-agrarian society, the agrarian society, that was their mainstay and their main commerce. But even in our day and age, hey, food, it grows. What grows from the land is your food, right? You can't eat money, right? You can't eat computers or digital products. Even if our commercial system is not agrarian in nature like it used to be, food is just one small component of the, of the economy, call it. But it's the most important thing. It's food. So food comes first, right? Now, so that's so that's why Zroim is first. And Rambam further says the reason why Brachos is first is because you can't eat if you don't make a bracha, right? It's like fixing the food, spiritually fixing the food. not allowed to eat unless you make a bracha. So so in general, we have these this order because it has to do with food, right? And of course, most basic thing is to fix the food so it is able to be eaten, and to fix the food first is make a blessing on it. Now, once you make a blessing on it, so we're going to discuss all the laws of blessings, right? So now we're going to discuss the blessings that happen no matter what. Now, the blessings that happen no matter what are on the mitzvahs that are obligatory day in and day out. Now, what's a mitzvah? It's obligatory day in and day out. If a person's fasting and he's not going to eat, so he's not going to make a bracha before the food, he's not going to make a bracha after the food, but he's not eating, right? So what is a bracha that a person's got, the bracha he has to make on Shema, right? Because our sages instituted, to say blessings before and after the Shema. That's incorporated in the morning prayers, chakras, and evening prayers of Mariv. So that obligation will come inevitably, even if a person's fasting. So let's discuss the blessings of Shema first, because the obligation to say those blessings will come first. But how can we even discuss the laws of blessings on Shema before we even introduced Shema? All right, so therefore that's why the first mission talks about the laws of Shema, but not just any laws of Shema, the Shema of nighttime, because that's how it's stacked up in the pasuk, in the verse, in the Torah, that commands us to say the Shema. It says, B'shach b'cha, say it when you go to sleep, uvekumech, and say it when you wake up. Say the Shema. All right, so there's the Shema that we say at night was mentioned first in that verse before the Shema that we say by day. So therefore, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Prince, who codified the Mishnah, he followed the order of the pasuk. The verse first says mentions the Shema of night before the Shema of day. So we have to talk about Shema before we can talk about the laws of the blessings of Shema. Which Shema will we talk about first? The Shema of night. Okay. So now we say from the time that the Kohanim, the obligation begins at the time the Kohanim go in to eat their truma. Now, meaning it's talking about this, that the Kohanim were impure during the day. So now they went to the mikveh, right? To take off their impurity. But going to the mikveh, to the ritual bath, is not enough. They have to wait till night for, right? So, right, and we learned this out of verses that let the sun set and he will become pure. It says in Leviticus 22:7, or Vayikra Chav Pei Zayin, right? And then he will eat from the kachin. And now what this is, so now, there's a multi-fold lesson that is learned over here. That first of all, there are types of impurity that require bringing sacrifices also on the following day. If a person was a zav, he had a strange mutant flow that came out of, his genitals, there's something called zav, or if he had saras, if he was a leper. So these things, that it also requires bringing sacrifices. Well, look, the sacrifice which are brought on the following day, that is, those sacrifices enable him to eat kachim, to eat like the korbanos, the sacrifices that the Kohanim made, but he's pure enough to eat truma by having gone to the mikveh and waited for nightfall. So it just shows that to be pure to eat truma, it's enough to have gone to the mikveh and following which to have waited for nightfall. And that which he has to bring certain sacrifices to complete his purification, depending on the type of impurity that he was suffering. There are some impurities that don't require sacrifice, but if he was impurity that does require sacrifice, his need to bring the sacrifice the following day does not doesn't hold him back from eating truma. Right? He just has to bring those sacrifices to be allowed to eat kachin the following day. So we want to gain more bang for the buck, and teach you with one short sentence. It is typical of the style of the Mishnah, why you need a Talmud to decode the Mishnah. The Mishnah is like so complex. One sentence alludes to a lot of different things. I want to teach you that the time that to say Shema night starts from nightfall, which is the time that Kohanim go and eat their truma. And you see that to eat truma, they don't have to wait for the next day to bring their sacrifices. At nightfall, following the day that they had gone to the mikveh, is good enough. Right? Okay, so now I hope this is all clear. You can always email me, contact me on the chat to ask me to clarify something. But this is the right. But I think I've said this adequately. Well, all right. So now you have until the first third of the night. Right. But our sages say you really have until midnight. But Rabbi Gamliel said until dawn. Interestingly enough, the Rambam discusses that dawn is 72 minutes before sunrise. Now, the 72 minutes, let it be. The Rambam is going to emphasize later, also in this very commentary on a later Mishnah, later in this chapter, that the Rambam's concept of hour, of course, there's always 60 minutes to an hour, always 60 minutes to an hour, as it were, but that changes, right? To the Rambam, he goes by sha'os zmanios, he goes by time hours, meaning to say like this: the day should always be 12 hours long. So in the winter, those 12 hours are shorter. Like we could have days where the hours are as short as like 45 minutes each. If you have to divide the daylight hours to 12 even parts. And then in the summer it could be like even longer, like 72. It constantly changes. In the Rambam's view of hours, right? So I take it back. What I said before is incorrect. There aren't always 60 minutes an hour. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is just exactly the opposite is the case. Not to the Rambam, not always is an hour comprised of 60 minutes. Let me say this again. In the Rambam's view of how time is measured halachically, the time is not always measured, in minutes. He uses the term hours, but what he means by hours, he means 12th of the day. So that means, in times like April or September, or to be technical, March 21st, or up to September 21st. September 21st, March 21st, by the equinox, right? By the equinox. So that's when, according to the Ram would agree that an hour is 60 minutes. Otherwise, an hour means a 12th of the day, And when the daylight hours are long, so each 12th is bigger. During the summer, you can have around an hour in the view of the Rambam. It could be even up to 72 minutes an hour or more, during the long days. And during the short days, an hour may only be 45 minutes. So let's say like this. Let's say it again, because I may have been, a little bit fuzzy when I explained it the first time. So let's say it again clear. The Rambam uses the term hour as 12th of the daylight day. That's to the Rambam, that's an hour. So not always is an hour 60 minutes. An hour 60 minutes by the equinox in spring or in fall. But during the summer, it's an hour is longer than 60 minutes, and during the winter, an hour is shorter than 60 minutes. It's 1/12 of the day, right? So now the Rambam is also saying over here, dawn is 1 1/5 hours, right? Which by the equinox of the spring or fall would be 72 minutes before sunrise. But like I said, that changes. That changes by the season. Right? And that's this is the Rambam's position. An hour always means a 12th of the day. There were some latter-day authorities like the Ivets, regarding Shema. We'll see later. Regarding Shema and Sotzman Tefillah, there are those that held, and I stress this is by Shema and Tefillah, right? Which is, hi Joe, welcome Joe. By the obligations to say Shema or Tefillah, there are those that say that since we live by the clock in this day and age, so we wake up by the clock, and our whole lives are based on the clock, and you can use regular hours, right? And you don't even have to start from sunrise. It was talking about, because we live by the clock. So when we wake up is by the clock, and when we go to sleep is by the clock, and the hours, 3 hours, 4 hours that we're going to learn about later, it's all by the clock. That's the sheet of the Karmarna Rebbe, right? It's a guys of Karmarna. That's the sheet of the Ivets. There are people who hold that way. The Rambam's position, which is a position, mainstream position Jewish law, is that in halachic time, hour means 1/12 of the day. So it's always fluctuating. So having 3 hours from daybreak in the summer is you have a longer 3 hours from daybreak. In the winter, you have a shorter 3 hours from daybreak because an hour means 1/12 of the daylight time. So the hours are shorter when the days are shorter. So that's something to bear in mind the Rambam, but I'm sure what the Rambam is saying is correct. He knew science that's visible to the eyes, that the different the time span from dawn until sunrise proper is 1 1/5 hours. So that's 72 minutes. By the equinox, and I guess that's shorter when the daylight hours are more condensed, and that's longer when during the summer months. So now, and he gives his own explanation. Again, there's a little transition from the Arabic, so it's hard to explain. He's trying to explain the phenomenon of dawn. That even though the sun is beneath the horizon, there's still some light. So, in his words, the translation from Hebrew is mine, but the Hebrew itself is a translation from the Arabic, right? He says the reason is because the sun rays are near the vapor, the thick vapor that rises constantly from the earth. Presumably, he's talking about the atmosphere. And he says that the vapor that rises from the earth is 51 mil. Mil is roughly a mile. It's a Talmudic measurement. I can't tell you exactly what it is. But he says that this was proven by the science of his day. So it's the, as it were, now it sounds like he's talking about refraction, right? That just like water refracts the sun rays, even the gas causes a refraction that if not for the atmosphere, it would be totally dark until the sun would actually rise. If there are any physicists or meteorologists out there in the crowd, let me know if this is the case. If there will be no atmosphere on Earth, will we not see any sunlight until the sun rises? The Rambam assumes that would be the case. In accordance to Science Times, says there's a 51 mil span of vapor that rises from the Earth. Presumably, he's talking about the atmosphere, and I can't tell you unless you, and I can't tell you. I can't tell you, what the science of today says, relying on you out there, but he says because the phenomenon of dawn, that there's light in the eastern horizon, even though there's the ball of the sun has not risen yet, is because the atmosphere causes the light to bend and to become visible. That is his approach. Seemingly saying that if the sun would, if there would be no atmosphere, you wouldn't see any light until the sun actually comes up over the horizon. Okay, hey, it's up to you guys to let me know if the science of today would agree with all this. But it is like I said, according to the Rambam, the difference between dawn and dawn and sunrise, and it goes the other way also. This is between sunset and dusk, where it's actually dark. After the sunset, you have the reverse. The sun has set already, but still light outside. Until dark. It's going to vary. It's going to vary from between the summertime and the wintertime. The wintertime, it goes a lot quicker, and during the summertime, it takes a lot. It takes longer. Takes longer, or there's a longer span from dawn until sunrise, and it'll be a longer span from sunset until dusk, right? In the summer, and in the winter, it'll be a shorter time span from dawn till sunrise and from sunset till dusk. That is the position of the Rambam. So this took a lot more time. The first Mishnah is very complex, so we're going to call it a day in just a minute for brevity's sake. Otherwise, it'll be too much to take in on a daily basis, right? So our sages say, up to you may read the Shema of night until midnight, right? But however, the Rambam stresses that really the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. You have until daybreak. You have until daybreak to read the night Shema. You could read until dawn. Oh, you can read until dawn. Until dawn, you can read it, right? So why do our sages say midnight? Just as a safeguard, because if you give a guy till after you say you have all night, he'll take a little nap, and next thing you know, it's morning, and he'll have missed the mitzvah. So our sages gave a safeguard, right? Up to midnight, But really, the halacha is like Rav Gamliel, that the night Shema may be said all night until dawn. The truth is, the Talmud says, that if a person, was in a state of duress, and by no fault of his own, he actually missed the Shema of night, because he got let's say totally plastered. He was at a wedding, dancing, he was being joyous. Trying to just do a mitzvah of making the chassan and kala, bride and groom happy, and got plastered, totally plastered. So he could actually say Shema even after dawn, because there are still, in this day and age, it's everybody. But back in those days when people used to rise at dawn, not everyone rose at dawn. There are plenty of people, a significant segment of the population was still asleep at dawn, and they just got up before sunrise. So you could rely on that if you were under total duress, right? Under total duress, you missed the night Shema. But you could even say it after dawn, but not after sunrise. You could say between dawn and sunrise, because there's people who are still asleep then, even though people in those days did begin waking up at dawn. All right, but Rav Gamliel just want to say the strict law for the regular people. If you had no duress, you have only until dawn. If you had, if a person was negligent and just would not say Shema, and he missed dawn, he lost it. Right? It's not a special dispensation. For people who were under duress, that they could say Shema after dawn, the night Shema, even after dawn also, but not after sunrise. All right, but that was the main point that we wanted to make. Okay, my dear friends, we're going to be doing a little bit of this every day, to plow away through Mishnah. Hopefully, we'll be doing other orders of the Mishnah also. Do not miss tonight. Tonight, at 8:45 p.m., a special end of Hanukkah, Zos Hanukkah Maimer, a special philosophical discourse on these inner secrets of Hanukkah, on this eighth night of Hanukkah, which is the climax of Hanukkah, for reasons that we'll explain. It's the eighth day is the highest day of Hanukkah. All right, please don't miss it tonight at 8:45, and please subscribe to this channel. Okay, I'll see everyone again at 8:45 tonight. And always, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe, and that way you'll always know, what I'm saying, and when I'm on, or you'll know that you missed something, and you can go and make it up. You're not going to know if you don't subscribe. So subscribe to our channel, please. Have a happy Hanukkah, Chag Sameach, and I'll see you all tonight at 8:45.